Well, I was on a panel recently, and one risk that we touched on briefly as a positive, and I think if you combine some of the earlier information on the pumas in all the dark-colored areas, is the strain on infrastructure for transportation. And so while it is expanding and while these development projects are incentivizing an expansion of transportation infrastructure, there's an existing aging infrastructure that really is going to have to be addressed as more and more inflows come to these urban cores that rely so heavily on mass transportation.
The risk for Mayor Fulop and myself is we'll be voted out of office someday if we don't do it right. And that's a very serious issue. In the smaller the town, the more serious that issue is, because if you go too much too fast and you disrupt the fabric of the community, people don't like change. They'll complain about their taxes, they'll complain there's not enough open space, but they don't like change. So this, like I said, Weehawken's been in evolution over 40 years, 10 years of wasting time and 30 years of getting to the development. But the infrastructure is really key. We have intersections when you do a traffic study there at F. I have the Lincoln Tunnel in Weehawken, Mayor has the Holland Tunnel. The Lincoln Tunnel goes right through the heart of town, right through the residential neighborhoods. Intersections are F, so when you do a study, they're gonna be triple F. F rating means that nothing moves. So you have to make a decision. You're going to have the traffic anyway, you're gonna have the commuters, you have to develop and you have to do the best you can with the existing road network. And like I said, if you go too fast, I would tell any small town, measure it, go slow, and you can survive. If you go too fast, you disrupt too much. I tell everybody there's no traffic in Weehawken. The tunnel's not there, it's just your imagination. But if people get a sense that you're overcrowding them and you're doing too much too fast, it can be a big negative.
So we try to move pretty fast, and it's not because of, I view it as we have different challenges than a smaller city or smaller town. I really view it as we have very much the same stuff. Just the reality of the situation is that I view this job as a temporary job and try to get as much done as possible in a short period of time and see what the voters decide at the end of it. The way I look at it really is that common sense rules at the end of the day, and just because people come to a council meeting and are the most vocal doesn't necessarily mean that they represent the majority of people in the city. That I tend to think that most people were probably like I was 15 years ago when they walk down the street and never go to a council meeting or never get involved, and they see a new park or a stop sign go up and they say, oh, that's good, and they continue on their day. That said, I am constantly engaged in assessing the risks of what we are doing. Right now, we finished a comprehensive housing study, the first one that we've done probably in the history of the city. We had NYU and Columbia do that, not just to tell us what we should be doing, but to really understand better what we are building and what the risks of that are. And they came back with some really thoughtful insights, and we're going to be reapproaching some of our affordable housing stuff going forward because of that data. We look at our schools constantly, and that is a big concern long term, and it's something that I'm engaged in. But right now we have 2 schools under construction. We're going to be announcing shortly some innovative stuff on some additional schools, so we're constantly thinking about how to fulfill obligations that we have to the community on that front. We're working on our sewer systems constantly. We're under a consent order right now regarding our combined sewer system, so we're investing millions upon millions of dollars in that. The path system, we definitely see crowding on that front. There's no question about it. There's opportunities that we've spoken to with the Port Authority about an additional path stop on the west side of Jersey City, because the path comes above ground for about 400 yards and it wouldn't take any digging. You just really need a platform and you'd be able to revitalize an entire side of the city. Part of the concerns from the Port Authority side is capacity issues. That said, the Port Authority, unfortunately, and government tends to be laggards, not leaders in a lot of their implementation. So I look at it that we need to continue be doing what I have control over from a city standpoint, and recognize that the force of what we are doing over there will drag along some of the other government entities because they will have no choice. The other option would be that we don't build and we don't invest, and the outcome of that is higher taxes and less services at the same time. So constantly mindful of it. I hope you could recognize that. But at the same time, I don't think that we're going to stop what we're doing because other entities in government present a risk that I have no control over.
I look at this from the developer's perspective, and there's no sure things. Developers have banks they speak to, and banks are always concerned about the risks as well. I think developers in Hudson County and Jersey City look to New York. They see the costs there of all kinds, the rental costs, the condo costs, the utilities, taxes, and they make a comparison between that and what they can get in Jersey City, and Jersey City comes up favorably. So I don't think that the risks are unappreciated. I just think the risks are bearable. And I think that that developers have come to that conclusion. Look at the market. The market itself dictates the risks that they're willing to bear. In this case, they're willing to bear those risks. It is true, the mayor has pointed out, that we have an aging infrastructure system, but it's being addressed in a number of different ways. So my experience has been that when the calculation is made, the risks are supportable. And you know, I was at a conference similar to this, and I had a question as to absorption rates. So many apartments are being built. What is the absorption of those apartments? How many people can you house in Jersey City? And the response from a series of developers, including you, Carl, was that to point to the Freedom Tower, point to New York, and say that, you know, when that tower gets filled up, Jersey City gets more and more people that are living there and working in New York, or living in Jersey City and working in Jersey City. So I don't think the risk calculation is unappreciated. I think that it is part of the equation.